Hello and welcome to our guest slot today on Wild Wisdom Wellbeing. And I am absolutely delighted today that I am joined by Nicola Shelley of Nicola Shelley Coaching, which focuses largely on transitions, but we'll be talking more about that very shortly. So Nicola and I met through networking and had a conversation a while ago, and I thought that what she does is so amazing, so valuable, that it would be really worth inviting her to come and share it with us here. And Nicola, you have such an amazing history and story to tell, because having started in Hove, you then went to Jakarta, from Jakarta to Bangkok, from Bangkok to Singapore, and then made the transition back to the UK. And so you've traveled a lot. And what I love about travel is how it brings us face to face, really, with lots of different cultures and, food, languages, all of this stuff. And I love that. But it can be hugely challenging at the same time. So You've learned a lot from that, which you use in lots of different areas. It's not just around travel and moving to different countries. But if you would tell us a little bit about what brought you to moving from the UK and then doing all of that traveling and then coming back, if you would share a little bit of your story around your travels, that would be wonderful.
Oh, okay, great. Well, it's lovely to be here, Robin, and to chat with you again, and everyone else who's watching us. Yes, so I was working quite happily, really, in Hove, Brighton, Hove, and I still have an immense fondness for Brighton. It is one of my favourite places. But I was working and felt like, as I was teaching, I thought the next step for me is to do something with, I don't know, be a deputy head or something like that. And I didn't want to do that. And I had some people around me who'd been traveling a bit, and I thought, oh, maybe this is the right time. Maybe this is the right time. And so I applied for a job in Jakarta as a teacher. And these were the days before the internet or anything like that. I really didn't know very much about Jakarta. I mean, I knew where it was, and then it was in Indonesia and etc. But I didn't know much about it. So it really was kind of a leap of faith in a way. And honestly, it was one of the best things I ever did. And I think at the time, people said to me, oh, I think you're being very brave. And I thought at the time that, I say, what do you mean brave? Brave is what you call people who go and fight wars or do really dangerous things. This isn't dangerous. But in time and on reflection, I think it was quite brave, because I went on my own. I did meet some wonderful people. There was a sort of a crew of us, of 7 of us, that went out at the same time. But it was so many things. I'll never be able to explain it all in this time. But essentially, it was just getting my head around a completely different culture, something that I wasn't familiar with. And we've got to remember, this was in 1993. Okay, so there really wasn't the access now. You weren't able to sort of drop into people's conversations on FaceTime. It wasn't like that. I think we might have had a fax. No, I don't think we did have a fax. We had phone calls, very expensive phone calls, and photographs, and that was it really. But it was so powerful an experience for me. I mean, it was a lovely experience. I was working in a really amazing school with some very talented staff, but it was what used to happen on the way home, on the journeys home, and the conversations that we had about what was going on, because there were things that we just thought were amazing, the landscape, some of the landscape and the scenery and the plants, the vegetation, and there were things that we were very troubled by, and things like, why is there a very glitzy high-rise building next to like a basic little shack, with a bit of running water out the back there? What's going on here? And just really having to come to terms with the culture, and being frustrated because we didn't understand it, and having to say, how many times did we say, It's not right. It's not wrong. It's just different.
Yes.
And it was like a mantra for us. And it was a really powerful mantra, actually, because, you know, it's so easy to come along to situations with your prejudgments. And I didn't understand what Ramadan was about at that point. I never really encountered it close up. I didn't understand different hierarchies within another country, you know, coming from a place where we think, or we often say, oh, we're all for equality, everybody's equal.
We're in a classless society.
Yeah, it's well, there's another. I could talk about that, but this in Jakarta, it was so different, and we saw things happening. And so, for example, it was considered quite impolite to say no to somebody, and so the answer would always be yes, which sounds lovely, doesn't it? But the answer that's always yes was often, oh, I don't really understand what you're saying. Well, I'm going to say yes because I want to be helpful. I don't want to admit that I can't help you. So I'm saying yes, and I'm going to smile. And, you know, understanding where that came from in the first place was really important. And realizing that, you know, it wasn't, the onus was on me as well to try and understand the culture better, and perhaps not to ask the kind of questions that require yes or no, to ask them in a slightly different way. But I feel that all of that has stayed with me and has come back with me, because whilst I was dealing with, you know, with Indonesian people who I didn't know much about, I didn't know much about the culture of Indonesia at that time, I still feel, you know, we can apply those things to anybody that we meet. We don't know where people have come from, do we? We don't know their backgrounds. We don't know what experiences they've had, what the importance of somebody saying yes to you is, for example.
So or why they've said yes, and what their kind of thinking is behind that yes, like you said. Is it because, well, I want to be polite, or I'm not really getting what you're asking, so I'll just say yes and nod and look helpful, and all of that. And like you're saying about everybody has a different background, we have our kind of culture within our own home, which is maybe very different from all of those around us. There's a commonality, obviously, of the culture of the country, but we have our home stuff as well, which might be very different.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. To all of that. And also to this concept of culture. I mean, I think we have moved on from thinking that culture is about, you know, food and festivals and what people might wear. It is much deeper than that. It's people's attitude towards work or towards time.
Oh, that's a big one.
There was a phrase in Indonesia we love, jam karat, which means rubber time, which means anytime, whenever it suits us. And that was quite a nice phrase. We used to use it a lot, because it just meant it's flexible. We're flexible. We don't have to be punctual. That's not the important thing here. So driving, the traffic in Jakarta was really, oh my goodness, it was
interesting.
Bad. I would say bad. It was very, very polluted. Yeah, polluted, and you would be stuck in it for a long time. But people's feeling about, there was no, I don't think I ever encountered any road rage. There was just this sort of acceptance. And if somebody came in front of you, it didn't mean that, you know, you were a lesser person. It was just, there was no stress about that. So, gosh, there were so many things I could talk about. But yes, so yeah, attitudes towards time, attitudes towards people's faith. You know, you needed to, if somebody asked you what your faith was, you needed to have one. Even if you didn't, it was important. So yes, I felt I took so much from that experience, and this mantra, it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just different, bringing that back with me.
Yeah, I have spent a lot of time in the deaf community, and they have a very different sense of time as well. But in studying within that environment and looking at different cultures, even though they're both British cultures, how different they are and how, you know, what that reflects and how it shows and how you notice it. Because it's that when you've grown up in a culture, you don't notice it, do you?
No.
It's when you move to another country and you notice the difference, then you notice your own culture. And it makes you kind of look at things and look at the difference. And like you say, when you can come to that point of it's not right, it's not wrong, it's just different, then you look at your own and go, oh, it's not right. I've always thought it was right because that's how I was brought up and that's how I've always lived. But maybe it isn't right and it isn't wrong either. Maybe it's just different. And maybe then we can have a coexistence of yours is different. That's exciting and just adds to the richness. But they also talked, when I was learning about this stuff, about how different cultures compartmentalize things differently as well. So whether or not, like in many more Southern European cultures, you have family almost within work time. So if you take a call from your partner, that's fine. Whereas in Britain, we might be, no, I'm at work. I can't talk right now. I'm at work. Mm-hmm. So they allow time, even the Southern Europeans in the warmer climates, as we were talking before we go live, how comfortable it is when the sun is shining. Yes. But that idea where, oh yeah, mañana, and yeah, we can just do it whenever. And it's so much more laid back versus Northern Europeans are known for being a lot more serious. And more compartmentalized. This is my work time. This is my home time. But yes. Then that has been challenged through lockdown when, well, my work time is at home and my, you know, where do I draw the line then and make a distinction? Because my sense of culture and rightness says I need a distinction, but it's gone. Yes. The lines have been blurred for me.
Yes. 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 So much that can be just sort of taken from that, just that one thing. And also, I think how we communicate with people, you know, how we communicate to people in our group, if you like. Yeah. But how knowing that actually helps us be better communicators. And as a coach, you know, my role, I'm very interested in being a good communicator myself, but also helping other people to communicate better if they want to, assuming they want to. Yeah.
To be more conscious of how we communicate. And I've studied a little bit of nonviolent communication, Marshall D. Rosenberg. So just that awareness of the words that we choose and whether that's to somebody else or to ourselves, because words have such power. And it's really good to be conscious of our choices, even when we're speaking to ourselves, because that's then there's a creative power in that.
Yes. That definitely feeds into the work that I do at the moment with NLP, which I know, you know, it's not a new thing and a lot of people know about it, but for me, it's the interplay between language, thought and behavior. And they I don't know, I can't do it with two hands, but if I had three, I could show you how they would all fit together. And that if one of them will affect the other two without a shadow of doubt. So yeah, you're absolutely right, how the language we use with ourselves, when we talk about ourselves and when we talk to ourselves, has a huge impact on what we can do and think and believe to be true. Yes, definitely.
So from Jakarta, you then moved on to Bangkok.
Yes.
Were they similar in their differences from the UK, or was Bangkok, you know, having been to Jakarta in between, was it easier to make that transition to Bangkok, or was it, whoa, it's another big difference and I'm, you know, I've kind of been knocked off my feet again. I need to re-find myself in this new environment?
It was yes and no. So the yes, it was easier because it was hot all the time. It was hot. It was either hot and wet or just hot and humid, you know, 80% humidity. You just get used to being permanently kind of sticky, you know, your hair and everything permanently sticky. But so, yes, I was used to the climate and the traffic was quite similar in Bangkok. But what was quite different was because Indonesia is the country with the largest Muslim population in the world. I think I'm correct in saying that, because it's a huge country.
It's very high.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was a good degree of modesty that was required there. I mean, I was working in a school, so I wouldn't be going in a vest top or anything like that particularly, but we really had to consider quite carefully what we wore. So yes, if we were on the beach or at the beach, that was fine. Beachwear was fine at the beach, but you wouldn't be walking around in exposing shoulders or knees and things. I mean, you could, but you would probably feel quite uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So we had to become very aware of that. But in Thailand, it wasn't quite the same. I'm not saying, the Thai people run around in, very skimpy clothing. That's not true. But that sense of modesty was not quite so pronounced. I didn't feel in Thailand. And subsequently, I don't know why, but I felt much more comfortable walking around. I'm quite a tall person, pale skin, very obvious, because Thai people are much smaller than us, generally speaking. So I was quite, we could see Nicola coming. But it was, I didn't feel quite so obvious in Thailand. I don't know, and I don't know why that was. I never really worked that out. But so that was easier for me, sort of just walking around on the roads and the streets. The language was harder though, because the language wasn't the same script, not even the same letters. I think I learned to write my name, and I learned the word for exit. Very important.
It is.
Yeah. So I learned to know what it looked like, and I did learn to speak some Thai as well, because I thought, that's useful. But I would say not to any level, just to sort of be able to get around. But I did enjoy learning another language, and that was very interesting as well, having to think about how you make a sound, because some of the sounds don't translate into English, and so you have to start thinking about how the air is expelled over your tongue, or how it moves across your back teeth. I'm guessing, Robin, if you're working with the deaf community, is that something that comes up there? If anyone's learning to speak, is that something that
not in the
or maybe not necessarily?
Not in the field that I work with, because I work with sign language. But
okay.
Definitely for kids growing up, they get a lot of speech language therapy. And there's a famous black and white, so this is showing the age, movie called Mandy, where it showed how they used to teach kids. So how to say "buh" with a balloon.
Oh,
holding the balloon, buh, buh, and feeling the vibration. Huh, because there's nothing to see with huh. So what is it? So, or ka, or ga, get a candle and watch the flame flicker. So there's things like that. But with Thai and so on, they're tonal languages, aren't they? So it's not just how you say the word, but how you say the word in that context for that meaning. Because the word might not be different, but you just change the tone of it, and whoa, you've really changed what you're saying.
Absolutely. And you could get yourself into a lot of trouble in the market. A slip of the tone, and yes, what you would ask for was not what you'd ask for. Yes.
It's not what you thought you'd ask for anyway.
I don't know what they call it, the straight tone, and then there was the rising and the falling tone. I honestly can't say I mastered
We don't have an ear for it, do we?
No. But it was interesting to listen out for it, and to sort of tune into a language, because at that point I had learned other languages. So I did French and German, and then I learned some Indonesian, which is easier to learn because it's the same script. That's what I will say. And Indonesian has some lovely things happening in the language. So if you want to make a plural, you just say the word twice.
Yeah.
This is just lovely. Yeah. So, just listening out for all those different things was very interesting. So Thailand was not quite it was an easier jump to Thailand. And then after Thailand, I went to Singapore, which was, very, very, again, quite different, and very sort of, how can I say, modernized, and it had exceptionally good infrastructure in there. There was a lot of storm drains. There was a lot of, electricity. You didn't get too many power cuts, etc., like that. So there was, you know, it was quite different. In a way, I did it the right way around in terms of like the one that was harder to adjust to, I did first. I think if I'd done the other way around, I might have found it quite a different experience. Not necessarily bad, but just different.
And it might have been easier because you went in steps rather than jumping from the UK to Jakarta, and whoa, big difference. And then things got more like, or, you know, less unlike UK the further you moved.
Yes.
6 and 2 3s, isn't it, really, which way round you went? It just would have been, as you say, quite a different experience. But I know that from all of the things that you learnt during the travels and the changes that you went through in each move, you then went on to look at transitions. And I'd be really interested to know, out of the moves that you made, either Hove to Jakarta, Jakarta to Bangkok, Bangkok to Singapore, or Singapore back to the UK, which one do you think was the most challenging?
Singapore back to England. Without a shadow of doubt. I say that as if, you know, I've forgotten that it was tricky at times, but there was lots of reasons why it was difficult, I think, because I moved from Singapore to Bristol, and I didn't know Bristol very well at all. And so it was, yes, in a way, I thought, well, I'll just treat it like I'm going to a new, you know, somewhere else. But what I found really hard was fitting into to England again. I just felt like I'd been away, and I felt like, oh, you're that person who's, where have you been? Oh, right, okay. There was no sort of common threads with me within this community. My daughter was secondary school age, so there was no school gate to talk around, really. It took me a long time. It really took me a long time, because it was, you know, when you come back, you sort of think you're going to carry on living like you did sort of, well, it was 16 years ago, but you don't, do you? Things have moved on. And don't get me wrong, I used to come back to the UK for holidays, and it's not like I didn't know it, but it was different living here. There was lots of things that were very easy. It was very easy for me to ring somebody up and ask them to organise something. I didn't have to worry about how to say that, because I knew what I was saying. But it was fitting back in and finding my community. And I have to say that the friends that I've got now are people who have, they've lived overseas, not necessarily in Asia, but they have lived overseas. So they know what it's like to be a stranger in your own country. And then there were sometimes, I mean, it's not so bad because I've been back 10 years now, over 10 years now, but there were some tiny little cultural references which I missed. You know, some TV programs, music. People talk about the 90s and the noughties, and I think, I don't know.
I wasn't here.
No, I wasn't. I mean, we did have music. There was music there, but it
wouldn't have been the charts and Top of the Pops and all of the things that we would have had.
No, and there were, you know, sometimes TV shows have little
theme tunes and catchphrases. Yeah.
Sometimes people say things like, I don't know what you're talking about. And it wasn't like, you know, oh, they're speaking a totally different language, but I kind of know, I suppose it was in a way.
It kind of is in the same.
Yeah. It was just, I did find it really difficult to find my community. And I think because I was living as an expatriate as well, that's in itself is a different community where it's highly transient. You know, people are coming, going all the time. But when somebody new arrives, hello, we'll make you feel welcome. We'd like you to come and, you know, see what it feels like. And, you know, hands were extended to you. And then also, you know, as you settled in, you did the same to other people. You know, you were equally welcoming to other people. Yeah, exactly. And that's, I'm realising that this sounds like I say, people in Bristol are not very friendly. That's not true. It's just, it was a different.
It's just a difference. Not bad, not good, not right, not wrong. Just
different. Yes. You know, we didn't share primary school stories together about our children, or Anyway, so it did, I would say, and they often call that reverse culture shock. There is a phrase for that one, reverse culture shock. Yes,
and
I definitely think I experienced it.
I think I wanted to bring that out because it's something that people might not be so conscious of. You came home, didn't you?
Yeah.
You know, there is an expectation of ourselves and of those around us, I guess, as well, that we'll just slot back in because the language is the same, the culture is the one you grew up with, and we don't necessarily think about, well, you weren't here for over a decade, you missed all those references. And I've lived in the country, but there are certain programs that I haven't watched. I'm not a follower of the soaps. So when people start to talk about them, I glaze over because I haven't a clue what's being talked about. So for you to have been out of the country completely, and it wouldn't even have been there on your periphery.
Yes, because we didn't have internet, we didn't have access to the news or that sort of thing. It was just, you know, somebody might send you a cutting from a newspaper or a photograph every so often.
And then really you'd only get such a small bit of the story, wouldn't you?
Yes. I'm interested because you just used the word home, coming home. That's an interesting word. I think in my very first term when I was teaching in Jakarta, I went to a meeting with parents and teachers, etc. And I spoke to a lady there and I said, oh, you know, so where's home? And she looked at me and she said, I don't really know. I said, oh, you know, but where are you from? Because she was British. And I said, oh, where are you from? And she said, well, I was born in Yorkshire, but I never lived there. And my family moved to, and, you know, so throughout her life, she'd never lived in England. And so when I said the word home, what is home? Home gives you the idea it's a place that you come back to that's very familiar. And that home became less of a concrete thing and more of an abstract.
Yeah.
Yes, it was something that was in your head. Home is, as I often say, who you want to be with, or and how you establish home I thought was quite interesting as well. How you because I've worked with people who've arrived in the UK and who. I worked with a Portuguese lady, and she was really finding it difficult to feel like home. And I was trying to think of some of the things that I did when I felt I want to feel at home, but I don't. And some of it was actually making a commitment to being there. And it was the smallest of things. It was like going to buy a cushion, knowing that you might not be able to take it with you, but it actually looked nice in where you were living. Or changing the curtains. I mean, sometimes it was the physical things that sort of made you feel like, oh, no, I'm making this place my space. So sometimes it was to do with objects, but it was also to do with the community around you. Because I had my daughter when I was in Thailand, and that was another thing. You know, I didn't have any close family around me. My family were other people who'd had children in Thailand.
And I think you've touched on something really important there, that it's not necessarily that you move abroad or you move to another country where you start to feel a little bit unsettled or displaced or whatever. And even within the same city, when I moved in to live with my husband, we were living in his house and it didn't feel like my home until, like you said, we made some changes. So redecorate, that I can put the idea of putting your stamp on. I could put my stamp on it. Yes. And even like I'm from Belfast originally, and I've lived in Bristol. I moved this is my second move out of Belfast. First was to Manchester, and then I moved to Bristol. And I love Bristol is such a lovely place, and the people are lovely and are friendly.
Yes.
But I was coming from the UK to another part of the UK, and I felt deeply kind of alien in a sense. I did not feel like it was my culture at all, even though it was only across the Irish Sea. It's not another country as such, but it felt really alien to me, and it took me a long time to kind of make that change. And all of the things that are wrapped up in that, the sense of family and sense of time and sense of how you behave and your accent. My accent felt so alien because I wasn't hearing. And every time, even now, every time I hear another person with an accent from home, I'm, where you come from? You know, where did you grow up? And is it somewhere I know? And might we know somebody in common? And I was speaking on the phone to my mum the other day, and I was saying, you know, I'd love to come home and live back at home. And she was saying it's an Irish thing, whether it's because of being part of a diaspora or what it is, but Irish people very often leave and then talk with great nostalgia and longing for going back, but with a sense that in a way we can't. And you never can go back. And when you do, if I go to visit mum, I don't know the place at all. So I don't think I probably could move back, because it would just feel too alien to me now, which is weird. And I've lived over here longer than I lived over there, because I moved here when I was 25 and I'm now in my 50s, which again is like, oh, but there's all of that wrapped up in there, isn't there?
Very much so, very much so. And I just think it's really interesting, the things that we do, or perhaps we don't know that we do, in order to make ourselves feel at home and to feel settled. And sometimes it is, you know, it is an action that you take, and it might be you join something that you have to commit to.
Yeah.
Or
and the importance of that sense of being connected to people.
Yes.
Or connected to place. And like you were saying about your family, was the people.
Yes.
They weren't connected to you by blood. They weren't relations.
Yeah.
But they were your family.
Yes. Yes, they were really. Yes, so we'd gone through something together with our, you know, our immediate family, real family, quite a long way away from us. So yeah, it was quite a powerful thing. And
another thing that we talked about before we came on live, which I think is so beautiful that you do, is leaving well. So we talked just about how when you moved back to the UK, that was potentially the most challenging move that you made out of all of the big moves that you've made.
Yes.
But wasn't it that led to you creating this concept and this program of leaving well?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And thankfully, when I left Singapore, we had some school counsellors who were brilliant, and they offered an exit meeting. Just as they had an induction, they said, you need an exit meeting. And out of, I don't know, 30 or 40 people leaving that particular year, only 2 of us came. I'm so glad I went. And we talked about building a raft, and I think this is very powerful. Did I mention the raft to you?
You
Robin?
did, but I can't remember what it stands for.
No, it's all right, because I've got it here. So when you leave, I think it's really important to leave well. So it doesn't matter whether you're leaving a country, whether you're leaving your house and moving, your job. I think that's really important. It's good to leave it well, because if not, you bring all the toxic baggage with you.
So and all the unfinished business, even if it's not toxic.
Yes. It doesn't have to be toxic. It can just be unfinished. And when I ever hear people say things like, "Oh, I can't wait to leave at the last day, and I'm going to do this and that," and I think, oh, if you left well, that you'd be able to draw a line under that and move on, you know, with strength. So we were talking about building this raft. So the R is for reconciliation. So it was important that if we had any upset with anybody, that we tried to mend it. Now I know for some people, you know, they've had the most terrible fallings out and they could never bring themselves to do that, but there are ways of doing it. Maybe you just find a post-it note and say, I'm not ready to forgive you. You made me feel absolutely horrible, but in order for me to move on, I have to put this behind me. And maybe that's your reconciliation. It doesn't have to be a face-to-face or anything like that.
And you don't even have to give it to the person. You can still do it just energetically. You know, one of those letters that you never intend to send.
Exactly. So there's lots of different ways of doing it. You can go and have a face-to-face if you feel like it. And honestly, the energy it released was amazing. To be honest, I made it my business to communicate well with as many people as I possibly could and get on with people. So I didn't have to do too much of that. But it is an important part of it.
But even just, I guess, saying, it's been lovely to know you. It doesn't have to be a reconciliation of we've been at loggerheads, but just, I want to let you know how much this has been to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's another thing that's, so in terms of the next part of it is affirmations. So it is, and it's thanking people and saying, you know, exactly those things, to the extent of, I remember going in my classroom and in my cupboard and saying, thank you very much for holding all the stuff in here, keeping it okay. And even thinking the space, you know, not in any kind of particularly mystical way, but it's just very important to me to say, you know, this classroom has had lots of light in it, and it's had lots of sunshine and fun and laughter and some powerful insights and learning, and it's been wonderful, and it's been great being in here. And it doesn't have to be anything else more than that. You don't have to have any ritual. Some people like that, but for me, it wasn't necessary. I was happy with that. But those are important things too, I think. So it's not just the people that you're living, it's the building. And that might be your house, if you're moving house, or it might be your job. So those are the first two. And then the farewells, that was important. And it was interesting because the person I did this course with, this exit strategy with, he said, oh, there's a big party for the junior school, but I'm not going to go. And we talked about it, and we said, but there might be a lot of people that would like to say goodbye to you. You might feel like, I don't really know that person, but somebody might like to say, I'll never forget the time when you came in my classroom and said this and made me laugh so much. And you think, it has to be two-way. You have to allow, it's not just you saying goodbye, it's allowing people to say goodbye to you, which is quite important. And that was a bit of an eye-opener as well for me. Not really thinking about it as a two-way process, but it is important. It is important. And the T is the thinking ahead, you know, thinking ahead to like, well, where will I be? And I think if you can incorporate those four things in your leaving, I mean, I do this in a lot more detail in my work with my clients, but if you can incorporate that, you will leave well, and you will probably start better.
Absolutely. I think so. Because you're not bringing the stuff either toxic or unfinished, or, you know, that energy that you then ties you still to that previous whatever it was, house, job, country. Yes. You can just, like you said, draw a line under it, say thank you. That's been so special, and all you take with you is the special and the wonderful memories. Yes. And like you said about energy, that's energizing that you have all that wonderful stuff, but it's also not draining you because of all the stuff you're lugging around. Yes.
I mean, I've actually used this process for the year end, you know, the calendar year end, because some people, I know, you know, some people say, I can't wait till 2020 gone and it's been so awful, or whatever year it was. And I think it's quite important to leave the year well too, because it allows you to start afresh. I also don't believe that the year necessarily ends in December. I think it can end today, and tomorrow is a new. It doesn't matter. But whenever your year is, whenever you decide that is, if you are using the calendar, I think there are ways of leaving it and moving into the next year.
And a lot of people celebrate around the solstices. So it could be the winter solstice. Yes, that we're ending the fact that the days are short. We're starting to go into the longer days. Yes, or we've got the change of the clocks this weekend. Yes, so it's whatever feels like. That's a time for restarting. Or September, like when you start a new school year. And a lot of us who've grown up with that, we still talk, don't we? Even in work now. Oh, I get my new stationery and my new pencils and whatever. Because it's that feeling, or a new diary if people work off of an academic diary, sometimes academic year. Yes, definitely. Even though I'm not working in school so much now, I still feel a bit like the moon we were talking about earlier. How that
it kind of, I feel like it's it's pulling me round. It's a school year still somehow. It's very powerful in our lives.
Absolutely. Anything that we spend a lot of time in kind of leaves a groove, doesn't it? And it, like anything that you've grown up with, will do that because it was in your formative years. If you had something between the ages of 0 and 6, 7, that's your just absorb everything with no filter, hypnagogic state. So it's in there, which is why it's so challenging when we move to another place that's different values from our family values, because weren't they the right thing? Isn't that how you're supposed to do it? Because it's so ingrained in us that we didn't question. We didn't say, is that right? We just said, that's how it is.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And those things can be really important structures and foundations for our life. And sometimes they are not very helpful. Sometimes they're very helpful and sometimes they're not.
I think when we're aware of them, it's so much better, though, because they can still be a structure, but it can be one that either we realize hasn't helped us and so we can let it go, or it's a structure that, oh, this is my life, but yours is different. And let's just explore that difference, because a lot of time that's where the magic is, isn't it?
Yes.
Where we can bring my background and your background together and see what it creates.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, no, I like that. That's where the magic happens. I like that.
But I think there are so many kind of on the boundaries between things where magic happens, because there is something about a boundary, isn't there? Because it can be moving against another thing, or it's the line between this and that. So what is it? Because it's in between.
Yes.
It's not this and it's not that. So what is it?
Yes, that's very interesting. I like the way you said that.
And the whole idea of compromise. If you've got one person coming with one thing and another person coming with another thing, and we want to work together and we want to compromise, what are we going to create that's going to work for both of us? And then that's a bigger thing, because we're together.
Yes.
And the sum of the whole is always greater than the sum of the parts.
That's a really lovely way of looking at compromise. I feel like that's not even the right word for it, because it sounds
no, because compromise.
But I like what you said. I like what you're saying, and the fact that I share my ideas, you share yours, and together we become far bigger than we are together as individuals. Yes,
because compromise has such a connotation of I'm having to give up some of my stuff.
Yes,
so that you can have some of your stuff.
Yes,
and I think that's where a lot of things kind of go wrong, and particularly when we're talking about rights-based decisions. For me, it was a death knell as soon as we say, yeah, but rights, my rights. Whose rights trump anybody else's rights? I think if we can put our rights aside and let's just come together as human beings, and knowing that as human beings we have much more in common than we have differences, and the differences that we have are rich. They're not a problem.
Yes.
They're rich.
Yes. Wow. Wow. I love that. I love that. I love the way you said that. It's funny, isn't it? You in your work, I mean, my work is about transitions principally and etc. But I haven't thought about compromise or what you've explained, or boundaries for a while, I suppose. That's very interesting. I like that. I like that a lot, Robin.
I think that any concept, any belief is great to take it out from time to time, kind of dust it off and is that still serving me? Could I look at it differently? And that's what I love about, we started off talking about your travels, and you've gone to all these different countries and seen all these different cultures. And it gives you, I guess, so much more to your toolkit because you've seen all of those differences, and you can, I like that. I'll take that. I'll have that. Thank you. And I'll take that and I'll have that. Thank you. And that's interesting. Like, I guess if we use the analogy of cooking, you go to another country, they have a different spice or a different herb. And you think, oh, that's delicious. I'm going to have some of that. That one I don't really like, so I'll leave that one behind. And that's the thing, that we can take what we like and just not take the things that we don't like. We don't have to fight it. We just have to say, oh, thank you. I'm going to put all my attention in the things that I do like.
Yes. I like the way you said that. Yeah.
I think it's just that really small, massive change of perspective. And I love to think of just its lenses through which we look at the world. Which pair of glasses do I want to wear? Do I want to wear the ones that let me see everything in brilliant technicolor and it all looks wonderful? Or do I want the ones that are really limiting, maybe blinkered and restrictive, and maybe kind of black and white or dark? I don't want those glasses. I want glasses that let me see more.
Yeah, no, lovely. Beautiful. I'm a lover of a metaphor, Robin.
I good.
Really like what you've just said.
I'm talking.
And
then
there's me thinking, like, no, there's me thinking. But sometimes it's quite good to have those very sheltered ones on when life is a bit crazy. We just need to look at one thing because we're overwhelmed. Yes. So as much as I love those glasses, sometimes I have to take them off and just go, I'm just going to focus on this because otherwise I'm just
too much. I'm in overload.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We get to pick and choose. Today I want those ones. Tomorrow I might not want those ones.
Yes.
And that
absolutely
it's okay.
The awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's okay to use different things at different times. And I'm not, just because I've made that choice today doesn't mean to say I have to have that forever.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely. I like this. I love the glasses. Robin, I came across this week and I thought this is very, how these little things pop up on my timeline somewhere. I don't even know where it was. And it's a quote from Henry Miller. And he says, "One's destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things." And I thought, that was quite relevant to our conversation that we were going to have. Just this idea of seeing things slightly differently. And it wasn't Jakarta is Jakarta and it was the place, but it was also, for me, another way of looking at the world, another way of walking in other people's shoes a little. I couldn't completely do that, but it was very eye-opening. I think people do say that, don't they? It is eye-opening. But it isn't just about saying, oh, I've been here. Because we can go to lots of places and see nothing, can't we? It's about actually having that open mind, so we can go 2 miles down the road and see just as much. If that's true,
I think that may be a little bit more challenging because we just think, it's only 2 miles down the road. If we go there thinking 2 miles down the road is a whole different world, we'll probably see. Because whatever your belief, you find evidence for it, don't you?
Yes, true.
I think sometimes stepping into a world that we can see is so very different. Like we talked about earlier, it just brings it right into your face that this is different. We don't do things the same way as you've been doing them here. Our food is different. Our clothes are different. Our concept of time is different. Our weather is different. And those things are what we see initially.
Yes.
And then when you actually live within the culture, you start to see more nuances, which is where I think you really start to shift your perspective and to step into, as far as you can, another person's shoes to see from where they're looking, from their viewpoint.
No, it's a very good point, and it is powerful. For me, I just thought, gosh, why has that come up? That's very strange. But then, things do come up, don't they?
So it's been wonderful chatting with you and hearing all about your travels and how they've then fed into the work that you do. So if anybody is listening to all that you're describing and thinks, oh gosh, I'm going through some major transitions in my life, whether that's leaving a job or leaving a place or whatever transition, because I know that you cover the whole remit really, don't you? And if they're thinking, I want to leave well and start well in whatever is next, how can they get in touch with you? How can they find you?
Oh, okay. So I have, I'm around on various places in social media, but I have a website. So nicolashelleycoaching.com. And there's a little video on there. So you'll see a little bit more about me talking about my work on there. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm not really on Instagram very much. I just dip my toes in there. So yes, but Facebook, Instagram, or my website is where you will find me.
Excellent. And what's the best way to contact you, through one of those, or?
Yeah, I mean, you can call. There's lots. You know, you can contact me on my webpage. You can do a little chat on the side. There's a little chat box that you can chat to me. And if I'm not online at that time, it will send me a message. You can call me. My number. I can give you my number now, but I can also. I think that's difficult if I'm trying to write it down. Just go to my website. All my contact details are on there. I think
I'll stick it in the comments below this live.
Fabulous.
And,
fabulous, yes.
And I'll put your website, when I upload it to my YouTube channel and to my podcast, I'll put it in the description for each of those. So people who are watching later rather than live will be able to access that as well.
Thank you, Robin. That's great. Thank you.
Well, as I say, Nicola, it's been fabulous having you. I've loved having a chat with you and hearing more about all that you do and your fabulous Leaving Well program and everything. And I really think that is so, so valuable. So thank you for sharing.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Robin. It's been a pleasure to talk to you again. I hope we can do it again. Brought live or not, you're a really lovely person to talk to, a very interesting person with a lovely view of the world, and it's just nice to be in a space with you. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you. And if you have been watching live or you're watching the replay, stick in a hashtag replay if that's the case, and you have maybe any questions, anything that you'd like to ask Nicola, feel free to get in touch with her in the ways that she's described. And as I say, I'll stick some links in below this chat, or just comment and I'm sure we will get back to you. So thank you very much for watching, and keep an eye out in the group. I will be sharing my next guest soon. Bye for now. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Thank you, Robin.